So do you have like programmatic APIs that you can interact with?
That's what we sell.
Okay, so it's not, it is user interface as well, or is it?
We have user interface, and we
Okay,
have products that have a kind of dashboard component. So we have a new product now that we're launching called Proactive Connect, that is a bit like a job scheduler. So you can build your own list of your audience, and then you can specify, you trigger a job at a certain amount of time, and the job is effectively an API call.
Right.
But whatever we do, it's every single thing is an API call. So if you look at here, for example, we have SDKs, and to send an SMS is literally a line of code.
So we're looking at a sheet of all of the SDKs that Vonage provides.
Yeah, if you go to developer.vonage.com, there are lots of snippets of code and everything, and different SDKs that we provide.
So give me an example of like a product someone might build and where they might want to adopt Vonage and what sort of levels are in that product, like text message, obviously.
Sure.
Verifications.
Yeah, so the simplest probably thing is to validate phone numbers. Okay. And that can be a 2FA, like you use GitHub or you use Microsoft. When you get that 2FA, that's coming for services, sometimes hours, sometimes hours.
Yeah.
And then you have, basically, every single time you interact with the customer is a good opportunity to involve it and also infer some context of it. So we have this kind of concept of conversational commerce, right? So that means that you create a sort of a profile of your customers. You understand what's the best way to interact with them, and then you have all sorts of impromptu things. Like imagine if you're an airline and for some reason your flight gets delayed, right? So we have
going to send these automated calls to all of your customers.
Not necessarily calls, but you might want to send SMS because it's easier, and also you can reach them. But you also have the opportunity to lower costs, right? And use WhatsApp, because it's in some countries is like 1% of a fee that you use for SMS. Yeah. So we have a product called Dispatch, which is a workflow. So you can do things like, I'm sending everyone a WhatsApp, but if people maybe travel internationally, they don't have data. If they don't read it within 1 minute, you just send them an SMS. Okay. But only to people that go through that process. So you have all sorts of clever tools like that will help you create better products.
With text messages, emails, calls, at Vonage, what do you find your customers using the most?
We use customers using everything. SMS is probably used a lot, and certainly during the pandemic, it was used a lot because you have more deliveries. You have lots of kind of things kind of changing, but at the same time, you have less usage. So it's very seasonal as well. Yeah. So obviously, when you have around the holidays, around other kind of religious holidays, especially in different countries, you have big influxes of data, so big parcels being sent and so on. Another good example is if you use a ride-sharing app, and I won't use names because it's better not to use it.
There are many people can guess.
But for example, if you're trying to talk to the driver, right, and for some reason you can't find each other. Obviously, you don't want to share your phone number with the driver because that will create some privacy things. So what a client of ours can do is rent a virtual number from us and then connect both parties in a call with that number. So that way you have privacy between the parties, but using our technology in the middle just to bring them together.
Right. So I'm just looking at this sheet. So we have a sheet of Vonage examples here. And one of the ones I'm really interested in is the voice.
Yeah.
So, for example, I've been on the phone, where you have press 1 to do this, press 2 to do this.
It's called IVR, yeah.
IVR, okay.
Interactive voice.
How would you do that here? I see that you create a Vonage call and then...
Yeah, you create a call and then you have a webhook that you can specify where you can put business logic to Vonage. So what Vonage does is creates that call, brings those people kind of on a let's think it as a bridge. Probably that's simple. Brings them in and then decides what to do. Or even before bringing people in, you can decide what to do. It can, and we have a concept called NCCO, which is called call something object, called orchestration object, or something along those lines. But you specify in a JSON format what to do.
Like switch statement in the JSON, basically.
Correct. And that's an API. A HTTP call that Vonage servers will make to your server, to your backend.
Okay.
Right. So you can do it dynamically, and also the Vonage servers will send you who's calling, what number they're calling, and other kind of relevant data. So you can decide, for example, you can have the same app servicing 10, 100 numbers, but you can decide if it's calling this number to go to this extension or pass it to this person, and so on. And effectively, you can have a small panel in your web browser that will ring inside your web browser when someone rings your number.
Really? So you can actually
Yeah,
call
yeah,
wherever?
yeah.
I didn't know that.
And also you can do it browser to browser.
Wow, that is.
So we have a concept of a user inside a conversation. So the conversation is how you bring people together, and users can join a conversation. So you can pass a user name if you know it, and you need to have your own backend, and then if that user has loaded the application, it just rings web browser.
So I imagine this is quite applicable for call centers.
Correct. We actually have a business, a separate business that does just call centers.
Right, and it uses Vonage.
Of course, yeah, it uses this thing. I mean, call centers is not just this; it's a lot of business intelligence, data, and a lot of stuff. But yeah, this can totally be used in a call center.
And since we're at CityJS today, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the kinds of JavaScript APIs that you might be using to support all of these different use cases on the web?
Yeah, so we have two sets of SDKs, what we call client SDK and server SDK. And the client SDKs are more what we just discussed with in-app voice and so on, and they're available for web using JavaScript, TypeScript, and iOS and Android. And then we have what we call server SDKs, and we have 6 server SDKs, the usual suspects, Node, PHP, Ruby, and let me not forget because I get in trouble. So Node, PHP, Python, Ruby, .NET, and Java. We provide those. So what we're trying to do is to make the life of developers as easy as possible. And this is why we're building tools. And personally, I'm in charge of a tooling team. So my whole reason for kind of doing this job is to make your life easier. So this is why I can send an SMS with a single line, because you shouldn't worry about doing HTTP calls, right? So your job is to bring that technology into your product and make your product better, rather than spending time thinking, how do I interact with these things, how I do authorization with these things, how I do all that stuff. So for some APIs, we're using basic HTTP authentication. For others, we use JWTs, where you need a bit kind of more authorization, kind of different levels of granularity for things.
What's the authentication like on a developer, like a Vonage customer side of things? Because obviously you're sending out text messages to people, you're sending emails. I know, for example, like not similar, but like a platform, if you send emails, they require you to verify that email first.
Correct.
So you know who's sending it from.
Yeah.
Do you do similar things?
Yeah, and it's even more complex because we need to. So we send SMS pretty much in every country in the world, apart from where you can't, for various reasons at the moment. You have regulatory things that you need to take into account. So in US, because if you lived in the US, you get a lot of spam calls.
Yeah.
So they introduced a new legislation called 10DLC, which means that if you send volume and if you do marketing messages, you need to be registered with operators, otherwise you get blocked. So we deal with all of that and we kind of package it and we provide that service to our clients. But in order to use us, you need to provide kind of validate your business and have all the different details. Moreover, you have, if you try to buy a virtual number in UK, there is no kind of legalese around that. But if you try to do it in Germany, you need to put your business kind of certificate and a lot of other stuff. In Sweden, for example, funny enough, because we just got acquired by Ericsson, so I've been looking at that thing a bit more. Not even you can't buy a number without providing that, but you can only buy a number if you have a physical presence in the region where you buy the number from in Sweden. So it's even more complex. And we deal with all this different particularities for our customers, and this is where we bring the value. Another good example is WhatsApp. So if you try to use WhatsApp, you need to have what we call a WABA. It's a WhatsApp business account, and that requires a lot of legal stuff for you to provide to Facebook. So we help clients not to have to do that directly and through us. Just make your life easy. Basically, that's why we exist. And just if you try to do anything, any way of communicating to your customers, be that an online shop, be a physical presence or anything like that, we want to make your life easier and we provide tools for that.
Yeah. Paul, I'm really interested in the voice, as you can tell, because I'm
sure, yeah.
Another
Ask question, go for it.
So I'm looking at this example here, and there's no audio file or like transcribe or anything like that. So how do you get the speech in the call? If there's a phone call and it has like an automated voice on it, can you pre-record that? Can you, or is it transcribed? from text or?
You can play a pre-recording message. We can provide a path to the file, and then we load it behind the scenes. But we have a text to voice.
Okay.
And you can specify inside the CCO, you can say, I want this text, and you can even specify what language it is, what intonation, and you can have even characters that are specific to the voice, so you can do tomatoes versus tomatoes. And actually you can do that inside.
You can have accents.
I think it's called Phenoms, if I remember.
Okay.
We have it, the page somewhere in our developer portal. But you can do. I remember doing an IVR for a developer conference, and one of the prompts I had was tomato.
Okay.
And
So different accents.
different accents, but different way of pronouncing certain things.
Right.
Because when you say tomatoes versus tomatoes, it's not necessarily different accents, but just different ways of doing things.
How would you configure that on Vonage then? Like if I wanted my voice, so I've got some text and it says tomato,
Yeah.
but I actually wanted to say tomato. How do you configure
You
that?
literally in the text you put a special character that denotes that you want that pronunciation. And also we have special characters. We can have long pauses. So if you want to
So you
wait
just
2 seconds.
dot or something.
It's you specify the length and it has a certain notation, and all of that can be provided dynamically from a server. So all Vonage does, it just looks at the server, and whatever you pass to it, it just acts on it.
Okay.
So you can build whatever you like. We had someone build in the past a joke generator, so or a pun line where you just call a number and you being read back a pun and run them from a database. So it can do all sorts
And
of things.
you can hook it up to a large language model to get unlimited jokes.
Exactly, and especially if what's happening now with ChatGPT and all the other stuff, obviously we can generate dynamic jokes on the fly.
So is Vonage looking into AI at all? Or?
We have actually a product called AI Studio that is more of a WYSIWYG putting together workflows for your data and affecting. So you have inputs and then you decide what actions to have. And I think this is what my colleague Ben did a workshop. I believe what was on Tuesday. So they must be recording of that somewhere. I think his case was to use AI Studio with Airtable. So every single input, so inputs can be receiving SMS. So every time you receive an SMS, you get a webhook event happening. The same with voice. So when you do a voice during that particular call, you get lots of events like call started, this party joined, this other party joined, this party left, and so on. And all of that can be piped through, and the AI Studio can do all that logic. So you can define it with I'm not sure what's if you use Node-RED,
Yes.
it's very similar to that.
Yeah.
It's very similar to that, but it's kind of our own thing. And obviously, with what's happening with AI and all the explosion that happened in the last 6 months, we definitely look into that. It's still early days. We need to assess how that behave and how we can improve our customers' lives using it, because ultimately that's why we exist, and that's what we're trying to achieve.
So Paul, before we finish, what's one
Sure.
of the most coolest or complex things that you've seen a customer do with Vonage? Maybe a text message and then an email and then a call or something like that. Is anybody sort of linked them all together in one workflow?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, the contact center does a lot of that stuff.
Of course,
and they would have voice, they would have text as well. There are lots of use cases, and it depends on what you need. I mean, we haven't spoken about the video product that we have, but with the video product, you can do all sorts of cool stuff because you can affect the interface. And if you use StreamYard, for example, I think you guys use StreamYard now.
Yeah,
this is StreamYard.
Yeah, that's actually one of our clients.
Yes. Oh, cool. Nice. So we're using Vonage right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
But you can. We had clients. We had universities, for example, that during the pandemic they built this online classroom experience, and with the video is really nice because you're in control of the connection. So you can have things where the teacher can see everyone and the students can see the teacher, but they can't see between them. Or the students can see everyone, but they don't have any audio enabled for them. Or you can have a bit like how you bring people on stage in StreamYard. You can have a teacher kind of bring a pupil in front of a classroom.
So it's almost like authorization at that layer.
Yeah. You turn on different permissions, and you have a way to kind of enable certain features.
And do you enable those features through the Vonage UI or through the API?
No, through the API.
Through the
Everything's driven.
API.
Yeah, in the same way. In voice, we have features where you can mute someone or you can earmuff someone. So earmuff means that person can't hear anything else that's happening. So you might have, like you can earmuff the audience and you still have the moderators talk between them, and then you bring the audience and the audience can hear the whole thing. So there are lots of, and everything is API driven, every single thing. We're having products that have a dashboard component. One new one is called Proactive Connect, we spoke about earlier. That one has a dashboard component, but it has APIs as well. So everything is about APIs.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
I think we're finished.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's we do a lot of stuff. So developer.vonage.com.
Developer.vonage.com. That's it. So thanks for tuning in. This is Paul from Vonage.
Thank you very much.
And you're tuning into CityJS. Thank you.